All right.
Oscar post-mortem.
Oh, man.
I dashed off a thing right after the Oscars with my initial thoughts, and that was before we found out that it became the all-time lowest-rated Oscar cast in history.
Yeah.
Tim,
although they have been gradually going down.
Yeah.
It's not like it was very, very high and this was a fall off. It's beginning lower and lower and lower, and this is the lowest of many lows.
But it's interesting because if you look at the ratings, they're getting about a 40. They're getting in the kind of low to mid 40 million audience all through the 70s, all through the 80s, pretty much all through the 90s as well, with a couple of years. In 84 and 98, where, or it was 83, I guess, 83 and 98, where E.T. and Titanic spiked things up above a 50 million audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about 2002, you're still getting a few 40 million audiences, but you're getting a lot of 30s in there, 38 and 37. And then the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's been in the 30s, mid to high 30s, and this just dropped right off a cliff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons for that. But first off, your thought about the awards?
The actual winners and losers and all of this kind of stuff. And, look, an interesting sort of set of events. I think Jordan Peele, best screenplay. Deakins got that cinematographer finally. As opposed to Rachel Morrison, who had been nominated, first woman nominated for cinematographer, blah, 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 all this kind of thing. So you have all these sort of like firsts happening.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Rachel didn't win, it was still a first when Roger did.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. So the awards show itself somewhat somber, kind of funny. But not particularly exciting.
Not feeling Jimmy Kimmel. I think 2 years in a row he's done. You can't bring back the host of the lowest rated show in history.
It's funny. This is the low ratings. Not his fault, of course.
It's not his fault, but you know what? It's not exciting to see Jimmy Kimmel walk out. You know what I'm saying? When you think about previous hosts, there's something about the host where they need to walk out and they need to kind of bring it. And I think the whole idea of late night hosts, which worked for Johnny Carson, I think it has worked less well for others. They've got to come out and they got to bring it. It's got to be somebody of a Bob. We don't have a Bob Hope anymore. When you think Billy Crystal would always come out with some kind of shtick.
Well, Billy brought the whole. It's different thing. He's singing, the dancing.
But and when Whoopi's hosted it, she's brought it
again. Yeah, the whole thing.
Ellen a little bit less, but she still had kind of a thing. But you need a host who kind of brings some weight, some gravitas, some fun, some expectations.
The thing of it is,
I don't know who can do that.
I am not sure that the Academy Awards, the show itself, what it means, what it's all about, the movies, the movie stars, none of these things are the same anymore.
They're not.
There's no one who walks onto that stage anymore that brings the same sort of attention and heft and weight and interest as any number of people that I could name from years gone by. There's a human being who could do it. Anybody who walks on that stage, y'all be like, oh, that's that guy.
I got into a Twitter war with him last week.
So that's not just because you and I happen to live here and work in this business. I think it's just true in general.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of celebrity, it isn't the same as it used to be. Movie stardom, celebrity certainly isn't the same as it used to be.
True.
All of these things are different now. They play in the zeitgeist differently. The millennials, these people we call millennials who don't go to the movies.
Yeah,
you want to figure out that number that we've been talking about, right?
Yeah,
I think go through it demographically, and you'll pretty much come up with the missing viewers.
Yeah,
and those missing viewers are going to be people under the age of 25.
Yeah,
who do not give a good golly goddamn about because you're playing, Disaster Warrior 15 or whatever it is.
So I think I'm gonna start up a thread on this on DigiGods because I want to get as much public input as possible. So everybody who's listening to this, head on over to the DigiGods Facebook page. I'm gonna do a thing this week at some point. I want to know what keeps people away from the movies. I want people to tell us. I want to know what keeps So go on over there.
Actually going to the theater.
What actually prevents you from going to the theater? And I don't mean, like, well, there's more interesting stuff at home or Netflix. What don't it's the alternatives I'm not really concerned about. You are not I guess that could be a legitimate answer, but things like, well, the concessions are too much. I don't have enough time. The movies aren't good enough. Those are all the obvious ones. And I kind of want to know what would, and I'll figure out how to phrase it, but
it is a tough thing though, I mean, because you want to say all things being equal, what would be, but things are not all equal.
What would bring you back to the movies? Because I often, people, obviously there's always the representation argument, which is, well, people want to see themselves on the screen. And I think at certain times and for certain groups, that's true. I think women want to see themselves on the screen. I think certainly, if you're from a particular ethnic group, you want to sometimes see yourself on screen.
We see what happened with Black Panther. We see what happened with Wonder Woman.
But I also want to see other people on screen. I go to French movies because I want to be taken there. I think
Japanese, etc. All of that. So the question. Because very often, the things that keep people out of the movie theater have nothing whatsoever to do with the actual movies, right? So, and when people say this, it's a true thing. So, the cost of that ticket.
Yeah.
That's a thing that might keep a person out. I don't have anything to do. Do want to see the movie. Love to see that movie. It costs $17. So it doesn't have anything to do with the movie. It has to do with what the movie costs. The cost of parking, the fact that I have to park and go in there. So cost, I think, is the big thing. What can the filmmaker? What can a filmmaker do about that? Pretty much nothing. Not the filmmaker. Chris Nolan can't do nothing about that.
And I've been saying this for a long time too. That the problem to all of these issues is risk. The reason the movies aren't better is because nobody wants to take risk. The reason that there aren't more women directing movies is because nobody wants to take a risk. It's never been done before. The reason that there aren't more black actors playing parts that are non-race specific is it's a risk. The reason that gay films only play in like 3 or 4 screens and only go to Outfest and then go straight to video is because nobody thinks they're mainstream. They don't want to take a risk. The reason that we even have a thing called faith-based films, which are kind of this ghetto where you market it in Alabama and in
you
Texas
get
and
church groups come out,
and because you don't want to take a risk. You can go right. The reason foreign language films no longer go into movies is nobody wants to take a risk. All of that goes away as soon as some group of smart people says, let's roll the dice a little bit, and then all that goes away.
And with that enveloped in, frankly, I think it has to be enveloped in a sort of cost to earnings ratio that makes sense again.
Yeah.
All movies, in terms of the desired cost-to-earnings ratio, cannot be, I'm going to spend $150 million in a movie that I want to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
If that is the determinative sort of dynamic, particularly for the big companies, and frankly it is, that's this is what we're going to do. So you can't, if you cannot have a circumstance where people can say, you know what, sure, you can spend $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $6 million on that movie. Your return now only has to be, which we lived through. We lived through that film industry.
Yeah.
Where you could get somebody to give you $600,000 to make a movie. You take that movie out, you do all your P&A. You spend maybe $4 or $5 million altogether to get your movie out into the world and represent it well.
Yeah.
And then that movie would make back $12 or $13 million over the course of its life, and everybody was happy. Yeah. And you did it again, and you did it again, and you did it again. Doesn't work that way anymore.
No, it doesn't. And I'm trying to figure out, there's too much noise out there with everything. I mean, obviously the internet and the democratization of everything, as I like to call it, is what's really kind of making it hard for, we got a mall that's going to shut down over here. The West Side Pavilion Mall here is shutting down because 2 other adjacent malls at Santa Monica Place and in Century City, they both went way upscale. And then you throw in Amazon and nobody really needing to shop anymore. The two
I lived in those malls when we lived in Westwood. Well, all of those malls you just mentioned, but yeah.
And the two, they lost their 2 department stores, and you can't have a mall without a couple of department stores to anchor
those in.
Yeah, so it's all changing, and I'm trying to figure out, is there, the movie experience is still valuable to people, but how do you fix this system to make people come back out again? So look for that on cinegods.com. Go over and like the Cinegods page. And you'll find out when that goes. But otherwise, the awards. I thought I really did think my prognostication this year was that Lady Bird would shock everybody and get Best Picture. But apparently, Shape of Water was less unpopular than I thought it would be.
This was not a movie that I loved.
No, I didn't either.
So, I appreciated this movie, but it's never on my list particularly high in any of the categories.
No.
And then it just sort of like cleaned up the evening. Maybe there was an attitude or something that was at work in the room.
I'm gonna guess, because it ultimately comes down to that preferential ballot. So either one of two things happened. Either it received more than 50% of the first place votes on the first ballot and just won outright, which I don't think is possible. I know a lot of people loved Three Billboards, and I know a lot of people obviously loved Lady Bird and Get Out. So I'm gonna, if I'm trying to read the tea leaves, I think ultimately, because what's exceptional about this is the first time since 2009. This is the first time since 2009, almost a decade, that the film that won Best Picture won the most awards outright. That hasn't happened for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And it's also the first film since 1994 that won Best Picture without being even nominated for the SAG Ensemble Award, which was the first year the SAG Ensemble Award was even held. So those two statistics to me are really interesting. I'm not quite sure what to make of them, but I've got to believe that when it came down to putting a number 2 film down, that even people who listed those other movies probably just defaulted to Shape of Water because it had the most nominations.
Yeah, it's just that sort of broad.
Just it looks good, and it's, even though I don't particularly like it, it feels like the more important film.
In this particular year,
I think I hate to say it, but I think a lot of people probably looked at Lady Bird and just said, it's a chick flick, and they looked at Get Out and said, "Oh, well, that's like a horror film," and that's too controversial, too on the nose, but probably just thought those don't feel like Best Picture winners.
On the other hand, a couple of films that one would think of as Best Picture, sort of, that Steven Spielberg, that sort of, the post, that's it. You're not there. Steven never had a shot.
No, never had a shot.
And, Dunkirk, it did what it did, but still, so, I don't know. It's an odd year for sure.
It was, definitely. But I was glad to see Lee Smith finally win an Oscar for editing Dunkirk. Nadim and I went to the you didn't go to the big Lafka shindig up at the Chateau Marmont for Dunkirk. No. So I took Nadim, our good friend Nadim George, took him up there, and we chatted up Kenneth Branagh and everybody else, and had a fun old time with Dunkirk. And we spent most of the time sitting at a table with Lee Smith and his wife, who's Canadian, and a
venerable editor.
Didn't even need for him to be the editor. He just had an Australian accent, and I like talking to Aussies. It's that simple, If the busboy had been Aussie, I would have been talking to him for an hour. But no, we had a great old talk with Lee Smith, and such an unbelievably nice and unassuming guy. I mean, this is one of the legendary editors of all time. Has done almost all of Peter Weir's great movies. I mean, he's been at it for over 30 years. And he's done all of Christopher Nolan's big movies, Dark Knight. When you've done The Truman Show and Dark Knight and all, I mean, that's a major career. And just the nicest guy in the world, and doesn't really want to talk about himself. And it was just so unassuming. And seeing him walk up there and collect that, I just thought was great. Yeah, it was great.
There were a few moments like that. There were a few moments, including the Roger Deakins moment, including the Jordan Peele moment.
For sure.
The Francis McDormand moment. All of these good moments. Gary Oldman's moment.
Gary Oldman finally
went on a bit, but still, nevertheless, okay. But it's been a while. And he mentioned his mum, so I'm all right.
He did, and here's what inspired me. There were a number of moments that I found very, very inspiring, and the two that were most inspiring was right out of the gate, and this is why I had higher hopes for the evening, and it didn't quite go that way. But Sam Rockwell, so gracious, so appreciative, so just so deserving. And that almost got a tear to my eye. And then that moment when Jordan Peele said, I started and stopped writing this thing so many times because I thought nobody would want to make this. Who would want to see this? All that self-doubt. When was the last... I'm starting to get
Yeah.
weepy right here. When was the last time that you had a writer, an actor, a director go up there and confess their self-doubt in the moment of winning an award?
Yeah, generally speaking, hubris rules the day.
It does. That was such a pure, transparent moment. And I thought that just speaks to every artist out there who's suffering from writer's block, who's gone on, their 29th audition and it's just not working out for them. Everybody who's just been beaten down. There's a moment.
And there's a thing, so like, we've been beating up the Oscars for, like 20 minutes here. I know we actually have to actually do these shows that we actually do. But, it's post-Oscars. But when you do look at Lady Bird and Get Out, the fact of them, whatever they won or didn't win, because sometimes I think we get a little hung up on the win and didn't win. Whatever with that crap. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, Get Out got nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. The brother got nominated for a whole sister. Greta,
first film,
Saoirse,
writer, director, and producer.
Young ladies. Young man, brown people, Guillermo, people forget. I mean, he's a Mexican, all right? That's a brown dude. That's a brown dude. That's a brown dude. And
the three amigos have won 4 of the last 5 directing awards.
All brown people. And them Coco people. So these Academy Awards, this industry now, this is a better industry. Yeah. I know we've been talking crap about it for 20 minutes, but this is a better industry. This is an industry that I actually feel like I'm a part of now, and I can actually do something in. It's hard, but it's possible.
But it needs for those people. We need to figure out how to make the movies that bring people back into the theaters again. And my question is, are we making the movies? Maybe this is a better way to phrase it. Are we making the movies that will bring people back? Are we not making the movies? Are we not marketing them correctly? Are we not distributing them correctly? Are we not exhibiting them correctly? Are we charging too much? Where in that process is the process breaking down? Is it breaking down in 1, 2, 3, all of these places? And I'm not sure I have the answer.
And maybe we shouldn't even mess with the categories. Maybe the question is simply this: is there anything that will bring you, meaning the audience, back to the theaters?
Why?
You tell me.
In your busy day. Yeah. In your busy day. Here's what I remember. Here's what I remember really enjoying about the process, even though it was a big pain. From the time that I started really actively going to the movies, late 70s, all the way into early 90s, when I didn't have to wait in lines anymore because I was a press person now and we got to see them free. But for, all through the 80s, and from the late 70s right into those early 90s, I loved waiting in line. I loved the fact that here it is, opening day of The Empire Strikes Back, and there's nobody in school, so you go to the theater, and there it is, half your high school is waiting in line wrapped around the block.
Yeah.
For a whole bunch of different showings. I loved waiting in line for E.T. I loved waiting in line for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I loved waiting in line for Superman 2, for the first Tim Burton Batman, which was a midnight showing on opening night I was going to, and it was
still in St. Louis for that one.
It was crazy around the block. Waited in line for like an hour and a half for that thing. None of this reserved seating. It was just for wusses. Because the enthusiasm was there. Yeah. People wanted to wait in line for 2 hours in their busy day.
But let us not forget, because being a red carpet press person for a long time, this was true. This has been true recently.
Yeah,
I have covered the 2 days of people standing online for those Twilight movies.
Yeah,
that's what you and I are talking about. The thing is, I've covered that. That's recent. I've covered that regarding the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
So it's not like that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like it used to happen, but it happens.
So what would it take to make you be that enthused, that excited about a movie again, where I can't wait for it to come out? It's 6 months away, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to dress up. Maybe you won't dress up. And I'm going to set up a tent on Hollywood Boulevard, and I am going to stay there so that I get the first seat, the best seat. I get in there. What would it take to generate that level of enthusiasm for the movies again?
Even when we were doing that, it was event films that we were doing it for.
But that's a question. We haven't. When was the last time we had those? Nobody does that for Marvel films.
Not the Marvel, like I say, those Twilight films. I remember walking those lines. And man, that was kind of goofy. And
Yeah.
then I forget when the last Twilight film was, but and
It's been a while.
And the Harry Potters, and about 5 or 6 years ago. Actually,
Yeah.
now that I think about it.
So
But certainly, the one with Jennifer Lawrence where she kills all the children.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, the children killing movie.
Yeah.
Those were kind of wacky. But but nothing but event films. Nothing but event films. Nothing but event films. That's all it is, man.
I mean, I made a point on one of my Facebook posts, and I'll retreat from the subject now. But when you go back to, if you look this year, if you look at the 9 films nominated for Best Picture, there are only 2 films there that were in the top 20 box office performers of the year, and that was Dunkirk and Get Out at 14 and 15. And they're separated by like, $5 or $6 million. They both earned more or less the same amount, which means that, Get Out is far and away the most profitable of those films. It was made for less than $10 million, and it made, 200 and some million. So that's just pure money right there. So those are the only 2 of those 9 films that came close to being box office hits, and they are at 14 and 15. If you go back into the 50s and 60s and you look at the 5 films nominated for Best Picture, 3 of them will always be top 10 performers. And the other 2 will be, 20, 30, or maybe an art film in there somewhere or something. But it was always like the number 1, 2, and 4, or 2, 3, and 5. There were always 3, and it was usually 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 were nominated for Best Picture.
And this is still when we were talking about your 8-9 nomination period.
No, this is 5 nominations.
This is during your 5 nomination.
This is My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins and How the West Was Won and Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai and On the Waterfront. From Here to Eternity. These movies are box office performers.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how we get back to that.
Well, here's the thing. Every film that you just mentioned then, I know we have to move on. Film that you just mentioned then, I'm trying to think of if any of them would be box office performers today. Because I'm pretty sure that every film you just mentioned would be an HBO movie.
Yeah.
I kind of think so.
Yeah.
And so not only would they not be box office, Bridge on the River Kwai, I love this movie with all my heart. You can't make that movie today.
Yeah.
No, at all. Not as a movie. That's a Band of Brothers. That's a Steven Spielberg film on HBO. Yeah. So the nature of the thing. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Well, we're going to start off with some kid vid. I got a bunch of kid vid here, and one I'm particularly fond of, which is incredibly well done. This is from the people who do Skip Rope. We got a few things from Skip Rope Animation today. This is We're Going on a Bear Hunt. I know what you're thinking. You're like, what's wrong with you, Wade? I just sat listening to you talk about Oscars for 20-some minutes, and now you're talking about a bear hunt. Let me tell you something. I got a 5-year-old daughter. And one book that survived for years. You got to kind of up the game every little bit. When they're 2, you read them some things. When they're 3, you step it up to 3-year-old stuff. And they're 4, you step. You know what? There's a great kids book. It's called We're Going on a Bear Hunt, and you read that thing. It's just, the artwork is so terrific. It's such a fun book. It has survived many, many, many generations. Thanks to Michael Rosen and Helen Oxenbury who wrote it. And it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff.
The illustrations are just so
It's
gorgeous.
so great. It's a family that's basically on vacation, and they're looking for, on a bear hunt, and then they find a bear, and the bear chases them all the way back home. And it's hilarious. But it's really sweet animation.
Very pastoral.
It's really wonderful, this family with 3 kids. And they made a little animated 25-minute version of it, as they often do. And it's delightful. It's true to the artwork. It's true to the spirit of the book. It's absolutely delightful. The dog Rufus is particularly fun, and I thought this was just such a wonderful surprise. I didn't even know that anybody had bothered doing this. This was done in 2016, so it is out from Universal, and the people who it's Skip Rope, and it's wonderful. I highly recommend it. It even has a couple of little special featurettes. And let's see. We'll get to the other Skip Rope stuff. Well, here, I'll do it right now. The other 2 from Skip Rope, Miffy's Adventures, Big and Small. More Miffy, the weirdest looking rabbit I've ever seen. This is stop motion animation. It's pretty rudimentary Gumby stuff, but there are like 11 episodes on here, I think, and it's fine. It skews very, very young. Never really caught my fancy, but Miffy the freaking white rabbit looking
with the little
And then Regal Academy, the Grand Ball, is also from Skip Rope. This is this is kind of what's the kind of Barbie-esque thing that the strawberry shortcake. I don't know. This is like strawberry shortcake grown up, I guess is maybe the better way to put it. Yeah, Regal Academy. It's very high school cliquish. I'm not sure I'd recommend this for pre-adolescent girls necessarily. It's sort of going to reinforce the popular girl thing that'll take hold much too quickly. Cinderella is the headmistress here, and it takes the whole the Disney princess industrial complex into a really weird corner. So I'm not entirely down with Regal Academy. In this particular episode, or this particular installment, the Grand Ball, which is 3 episodes. But I will not overly criticize it because I'm sure some people really love it.
Yeah, you'll have issues with those princess situations.
Ben 10 continues to be hugely popular on Cartoon Network.
Ben 10.
We got 20 episodes of Ben here. This is Villain Time is the name of this collection of 20 episodes. It's fine. It's pretty much the same stuff over and over. This is Villain Time Season 1, Volume 1, so I'm sure we're going to get a whole lot more of these. Ben is 10 here, and is he growing up?
Yeah, no, stays
he stays the same because he looks different in this from other ones, and I wasn't sure. Don't think I ever really focused on that too much, but anyway, Ben looks a little different from previous Ben 10 installments. I guess different animation team, but continues to be quite the hero, and aliens fear him for some weird reason. Doesn't make me think too much of aliens. Got a couple from Nickelodeon. Mainly boy-oriented stuff, so I can't say I have a great deal of experience in how these actually translate. Paw Patrol, Sea Patrol, and the other one is Blaze and the Monster Machines, Heroes of Axel City. If you have boys, email us at gods@digigods.com. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah.
Blaze the Monster Machines, big old monster trucks that talk and do fun things. There's 4 episodes here. And then the Paw Patrol pups, there's 6 episodes, and the Paw Patrol thing, I know a lot of little boys. We've been to some birthday parties where it's all Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol, and whatever. They're dogs. Although, speaking of dogs, the new Wes Anderson film.
Oh, yeah.
Island of Dogs. Have you seen the trailer for that?
No, I haven't seen the trailer.
It's wild.
Yeah.
That is one wild-looking movie. I mean, seriously, because after the Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was Wes Anderson's first stab at being a director of animation. The whole deal with that. He never was once in the same room with the animators.
I think I remember. Yeah.
He was in Paris and they were in London, and he was communicating with them by like phone and fax and email. How do you even direct a movie remotely? It just makes no sense to me. And there was a lot of tender feelings about this. But still, the movie did well. Yeah. And I thought, okay, he's never going to do animation again because he clearly doesn't have his heart in it. Boy, was I wrong. You got to check out the trailer. Okay. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. And the whole subject, it's this whole Japanese World War II thing and, atomic bomb. And I don't even know how to wrap my head around it, but it's just wild. It looks wild. Yeah, check it out. Yeah, it looks great. We got a couple from BabyFirst. My daughter is way, way outside this age range now. So BabyFirst does really very, very young educational stuff. This one is Color Crew New Adventures. And the other one is ABC Galaxy of Learning. Got 2 hours worth of pretty intense educational stuff kind of couched in this very, very fun animation. It's worth it. It's worth it. Kids will learn. They absolutely will learn. It's amazing the things that they glom onto. We've been using apps lately. Yeah. We've got these educational apps to kind of help my daughter learn, reading and math and so forth. Absolutely working like a charm. It's working like a charm.
I gotta,
it's amazing.
Yeah. I'm big into the language ones,
Yeah.
Pimsleur and a couple others, French and Spanish.
Oh, you gotta recommend those.
Oh, they're fantastic. Oh. Yeah. So, anyway, it's a weird thing the way those things actually work language into your head.
That's true. I got another Garfield, His 9 Lives and Garfield in the Rough. on the disc 9 Lives. It's too bad Mark isn't here because he hates Garfield with such a passion. There was always, maybe we should get him. Maybe we should get him on Skype and just go, Mark, what do you think about Garfield? Record a 10-minute rant. Mark really hates Garfield. I'm okay with Garfield. It gets a little old at a certain point, I guess. But 70 minutes worth of Garfield is better than.
I always preferred the strip, the comic strip,
the comic strip
without because there's a voice there, and that was never the voice in my head.
True.
What are you gonna do?
We got a little live action thing here. First run straight to DVD kid kind of ghost hunter-y thing called Monsters at Large. This thing's been done, a lot, and this is a brand new movie with 3 kids who go looking for monsters. It's a little bit like Monster Squad and obviously Ghostbusters, and this is nothing particularly new. But it's got Stephen Tobolowsky in it, which is always good for me, and Misha Barton obviously still working, although really, where did she disappear to? It's straight up kid stuff. The only thing that might be of interest to people is that Brooklyn Prince is in this. From Florida Project. Not quite doing the same thing, but if you're a fan, if you're a newfound fan, you will certainly enjoy it. PBS Kids and all things related to PBS, like Sesame Street. So here's what we've got there. Dinosaur Train, Big Pond Adventures. My daughter still loves Dinosaur Train. There are 8 episodes here, and it's the same stuff. Dinosaur Train comes from the Henson factory, and it's fine. Some episodes are better than others. The 2 Sesame Street titles here, I just still thoroughly enjoy. One is The Best of Elmo, and the other one is the Elmo-centric Love to Learn 2. Anything related to Elmo is popular in our house. This is just really, really fun. A lot of great guest stars on here. A lot of great, actors and actresses who take some time out to have some fun with Elmo, and it's really great. Amy Adams and Lupita Nyong'o and Mindy Kaling. It's really it's a lot of fun. So The Best of Elmo 4 and Love to Learn 2. Best of Elmo 4, Love to Learn 2. And then the last one, still don't quite get this. Cracking the Case, PJ Masks. So the little junior juvenile superhero thing, there are a number of animated shows that do this, and there are 6 episodes here from PJ Masks and this Cracking the Case disc. And I kind of don't quite get the PJ Masks thing. This is from 20th Century Fox and Entertainment One. Catboy, Owlette, and Gecko are the 3 little heroes. And it all seems kind of... It feels like an idea that was cooked up by a committee, and it doesn't really resonate, but it continues to be popular. So shoot me in the head. I'm a horrible person. All right, Tim, let's
new movies.
Yeah, new movies. Let's kick into some new movies.
The Disaster Artist, which didn't pop up that much. I know we already talked about the Academy Awards, so we're not going to slip back into that again.
We got a lot of Academy Award movies this week.
Yeah, so the Disaster Artist. So let's just as a film, things related to all of that notwithstanding, I rather enjoyed the Disaster Artist. That's a piece of work. I rather thought that James Franco gave a really interesting performance playing this guy Tommy Wiseau. If you've been in L.A. for a long time or grew up in L.A. the way Wade did, then this all plays a little bit different. I've been here for 30 years, so this all plays a little bit differently. I remember when that billboard went up.
I did too. We saw it all the time. Well, that was early 90s.
Early 90s,
early 90s, and it was a few blocks away from the box office main office.
Yeah, because you had to see it.
You and I wrote for box office at that time, and whenever you're going to a screening or you're going anywhere on Sunset Boulevard, you keep bumping into that damn billboard.
That was that
face.
Like,
are you kidding?
And for a long time, I was like, what? What is what? And then eventually I figured out it was a thing. So I went to see it. I don't know, early 2000s, I guess. Yeah. Awful. uh, and I understood that it was meant that it was a thing by that point,
Yeah.
and I didn't quite get into it in the way that people did, say like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right,
We went
right.
we did do that too.
Sure.
No, it wasn't that for me, but apparently it was for some people.
Boy, was it ever.
And James and his brother saw that, and the thing that I will say about the movie, Dave Franco, I really loved
He
Dave.
did a great job.
He did a great job, because
Did a
we talk
great
about
job.
James and all of
Yeah.
the contra. And I feel bad about all of that, because the person who really got cheated in terms of the pats on the back and the kudos that they should have gotten is Dave. James will be fine.
Yeah.
It's Dave who got kind of screwed
It's
a little
his
bit.
movie.
It's
too.
his movie.
It's
Yeah.
his movie. James is basically doing an impression of Tommy, which he keeps doing, like his Golden Globe acceptance speech. He's got Tommy standing next to him, and he's doing an impression of the guy when he's standing a foot and a half away.
When Tommy tried to get it back. Anyway, this is the movie. 2 Golden Globe nominations, Best Picture and Comedy, and all that kind of stuff. Issues with respect to it at the Oscars. Special features, a gag reel, audio commentary, the making of this, that, and everything. Have some fun with the disaster artists.
Yeah. Loving Vincent was one of the films nominated for Best Animated Feature Film. It, of course, did not win. The film that won is one we talked about last week, and we're actually going to talk about again in just a minute. But Loving Vincent, a really interesting film. Forget about the fact that the story, this Vincent van Gogh-centric story that is basically Citizen Kane, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's this whole kind of investigation, mystery.
Although our
thing.
Peter Rayner at our big show called it an episode of Columbo.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did.
hysterical.
He did. It is. It's more Citizen Kane than Columbo, but that's classic Peter. No, the thing is, this movie took a long time to do, because it is an oil-painted animation. It is not hand-drawn. It is not CGI.
In the style of Van Gogh's most famous works, anyway.
And it is,
Starry Night and all that.
despite the fact that the story is a little bit thin and a little derivative, and despite the fact that the oil painting animation, which everyone has always asked, I wonder what an animated film would look like if every frame were painted.
Yeah.
This is what it would look like.
That, yeah.
And
Like
it
a
would
Van
give
Gogh anyway, yeah.
and it would give you a headache,
Yeah.
because it is so much information. It's information overload. It really, really just
And it has that sort of Dr. Katz squigglemation thing
Yeah.
kind of going, if people remember
yeah,
that.
even where things are still,
Yeah.
they're still moving.
Yeah.
Everything is
And,
moving.
and of course, these animators are trying to speak to the impact of Van Gogh's
Yeah.
that Starry Night kind of thing. So they're doing a thing there. It's not a mistake. It's just what it is, and what it is bugs me.
It does. It bugs me too. Although I admire the effort, so I have to say I think this would have been better as an animated short. I think as an animated short, they would have won an Oscar.
It would have still lost to Kobe.
It would, yeah, it would have still lost to Kobe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Love Basketball was just great, but yeah, there's a lot to admire here. So it's not perfect. It's a little bit irritating in terms of its shortcomings. Nonetheless, there are a lot of things to admire. So you can admire it in fits and starts. It's probably worth more of a rental than anything. But on Blu-ray, it is you really, really do get the detail beautifully. It's very, very nicely done on Blu-ray. So kudos to Cinedigm.
Yeah, for fans of anime, they're gonna have to go see that. Lady Bird, we were just talking about that. Written and directed, a debut film of Greta Gerwig, the wonderful actress now, a wonderful filmmaker too. Look, I'm just nuts about this film.
It got shut out too, and I
yeah.
talked to so many people who said, "Oh, Lady Bird can't win Best Picture," and that's when I should have probably clued in that it was not as popular as I thought it was, at least in the second place spot. But
I preferred this. This film was higher on my top 10 list than Get Out, which is very high on my top 10 list. This was higher.
This was of all the 9 nominated films, this is probably the highest for me.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, a sort of women-centric film. Greta, Saoirse Ronan, Laurie Metcalf playing these roles. Set in about this movie was set in the early 2000s, right around which is a very subtle thing, but very important in the context of the dynamic of the movie. A performance in this movie that people didn't talk about, and I was disappointed that it was Tracy Letts as the dad.
Yeah,
it's a women-centric
really
movie.
good.
But he was just so wonderful as this stoic dad. Living this life in this movie with these women that he was just, because you and I are both we're dedicated to our girls, and this guy was this guy who's just dedicated to his girls. He's and just trying to figure out how to negotiate all that. Anyway, this is lovely. Special features, audio commentary with the director Greta Gerwig, the cinematographer.
It's a really fun commentary.
So fun
commentary, and Beanie Feldstein is also really, really great in that.
Oh,
She
yes,
is
the
just
little
so
friend. Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, Beanie Feldstein, who's showing up in a lot of stuff and who is wonderful in everything, and she's just so funny and so charming, is Jonah Hill's sister.
Oh,
So
did not know.
yeah. So if you look, you go, oh yeah, of course, it
Yeah.
totally runs in the
Yeah,
family.
now
I get it. I
yeah,
see
yeah.
the resemblance and the humor and the timing and the whole thing. You're just like
Yeah.
your little female Jonah Hill. I get it. Yeah. So Jonah Hill and his sister Beanie Feldstein are storming the town. Coco. We talked about the Blu-ray last week. We now have the 4K Ultra HD of Coco, and it is just pristine and gorgeous and phenomenal. And not my favorite animated film of the year. I prefer The Breadwinner, but everyone else prefers Coco. It won the Oscar. Another feather in the cap for Pixar. And I will say, Pixar does continue to dominate the CG animation landscape for good reason. They do things that nobody else seems able to do with software. They are just head and shoulders above. And there are little things in Coco that are when I look back on stuff like the first Toy Story, you realize just how far the technology has come.
Yeah.
It is amazing the things that they're able to do, just leaps and bounds. Where this technology is going to be in 15, 20 years, I can't even imagine. And what's really cool is that you have this thing here called Ultra Play, where you can just go direct. I mean, it's pretty great. It's a 4K only thing, and everything about the 4K is just it's mind-boggling. If you want anything else, if you want the extra content, you got to go to the Blu-ray, which is included, and that's where you get the commentary and the featurettes and all that stuff. So, but really, it's pretty great on 4K. It's kind of mind-boggling, and also Movies Anywhere, so you can add it to your Movies Anywhere library, and you're good to go.
Boom, boom, boom. 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Which a lot of people thought would win Best Picture.
Yeah, Sam.
Because it won the SAG Award.
Yeah, Sam did great. Good for him. It's an odd thing. Even as I look at this, I still prefer that Woody Harrelson performance.
I know you
in
do.
the same movie.
I know.
You know, if I had to pick, of course, Francis won and gave that beautiful speech. This film, this was a film that fell into the category of things that I like to call things that I appreciate more than things that I actually like.
Yeah.
I don't actually like this movie.
I don't either.
I appreciate it. I understand what's going on
Yeah.
and that sort of thing that's going on, but it spins off badly in a couple of different ways.
The criticism of this movie, which I think is largely valid, is also ironically what a lot of people praised about it, and it all kind of comes from Martin McDonagh.
Yeah.
And Martin McDonagh did not get nominated for Best Director, and that, again, was the reason that this film was unlikely to win Best Picture, because that just almost never happens. But the Martin McDonagh, as a not being American and coming with his
certainly not a Midwestern American,
Not a
as I
Midwestern
happen to be.
That's right. So he comes with that foreign sensibility, and whenever that happens, you two things are the result. People will look at it and go, you have no idea what really goes on in America. People don't talk like that. People don't interact with like that. That's just that's a foreigner looking at us with an outsider's eye.
And that is the thing that's going on in this movie.
But people also look at that and they go, I love it. It's so not real.
Yeah, it's a fresh look.
It's a fresh look.
view.
It's a hot take.
You know, he sees. He can see us what we really are. I'm like, no,
no.
Yeah, none of these people. I'm from Missouri. None of these people are from anywhere in fucking Missouri. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But this is it's a powerful movie with an interesting sort of thing going on in it.
Yeah.
That I understand why people sort of move toward it. 7 Academy Award nominations, including that Best Picture nom that didn't get Francis and Sam and all that. Deleted scenes, and some other stuff on here. You know, it's a film that I can recommend, despite the fact that I said that I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. A film that was very high on my top 10 and which got a few Oscar nominations, not the big ones, but it did win Best Supporting Actress very deservedly. I, Tonya. Allison Janney took home Supporting Actress for playing Tonya Harding's mom, her just crazy, zingy, zany, oppressive, cruel mom. And by the way, the clip that they showed in the diner where she says, "You're a taker."
Yeah.
And she's sitting there just lighting the cigarette, and I just thought, that is so not even close to the best scene that you could have chosen as a clip during the Oscars. Why would you choose that one? And then I realized that pretty much every other scene she's in, she's spewing profanity.
Yeah, she's cussing.
There's nothing, nothing that could possibly be suitable as a clip on the Oscars. That was the only one. But what a great movie! I love
great
this movie.
And
I love this film.
People, because a lot of people talked about the caricature of the mom that Allison was playing, except that she wasn't a caricature.
No,
go look that lady up. She's on. You can find her on.
She's at the end of the movie.
She's at the end of the movie. You're absolutely right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
With that fur coat and that and all with the
and the parrot.
Poking at her. I'm like, but it seems like a thing that could only be made.
Yeah.
No, that was Tonya Harding's mom, and
Allison
it's why I have all the empathy in the world for Tonya Harding.
It started wrong.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that's great about this movie. This movie falls into a very particular class of film, and let's give all the credit in the world to everybody involved in this. Craig Gillespie, the Australian director, and what I really thought was awesome was that Steve Rogers, the screenwriter who wrote this, who's a real journeyman. Like, Steve Rogers has never written anything even close to an Oscar caliber film in his life. He's just one of those guys that gets hired and he does the job and he takes a paycheck and he walks and he goes on, and it's just a real journeyman workman, workaday writer, right? And here he wrote a thing that it broke through, and it's put him to a whole new level. And God bless you, Allison Janney. She took Steve Rogers as her Oscar date.
Yeah.
Now, how awesome is that? She brought the writer to the Oscars because she gave him all the credit in the world for the part and for the award that she was almost certain to win, and which she did. And I think that's so classy. But here's the thing. This is that bitter, dark humor that you don't get in movies anymore. Yeah. This is like RoboCop dark humor. This is Dr. Strangelove dark. This is
Death to Smoochie.
Death to Smoochie dark. Yeah, this is one of those movies. It is dark, bitter humor. And the Nicole Kidman thing.
With the Gus Van Sant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is,
oh my God.
We're both drawing a blank on the title.
The Gus Van Sant film. Yeah.
Those are the movies that this really kind of emulates. And what they did, they interviewed people, everybody involved, to get their story on what actually happened, and they all lied through their teeth, and nobody told the straight story. And the filmmakers smartly just kind of threw their hands in the air and just said, you know what? You make up your mind. We're going to give you the whole bucket. And they made a movie out of the fact that everyone involved is an unreliable narrator, which is so smart and so unorthodox.
The sort of unreliable narrator thing is a thing, that we go and train and all that kind of stuff. But here, where they simply assessed very quickly that, you know what? All of you people are lying, and we're going to record every lie that you tell, and we're going to make a movie out of all your lies. We're going to let you contradict each other and kick the snot out of each other, and that's it.
And do not miss the Craig Gillespie audio commentary. It is so rich and so informative and so interesting, and it fills in so many gaps. Every question you have when you watch this movie, go back to the beginning, listen to the commentary. It fills in everything.
And you know what? When I say that everybody's lying, what's interesting about the movie, if you watch it, particularly if you watch it more than once, the fact of the matter is, everyone isn't lying.
No, they're telling their truth.
They're telling their truth.
Yeah.
Everyone tells a lie. Everyone says a thing that they fundamentally know isn't true.
I hate to make the Rashomon example, because it really isn't Rashomon. It's not structured like Rashomon. No. But there is a similar dynamic at play, which is that everyone is telling their truth.
Yeah. It's a perspective thing. Tonya comes off, the character of, because you know what? She's like, no, I remember it like this. This guy punched me in my head, and he's like, what are you talking about? I don't remember punch anybody in the head. I'm like, you know what, Galooly? I think you punched that chick. I think you did. The Man Who Invented Christmas, which I think was a movie that we thought that we would have been talking about around, Christopher Plummer again, who also didn't happen because all the money in the world and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this movie was basically Dan Stevens, Christopher Plummer, Jonathan Pryce, doing a version of the Dickens story, Scrooge, only told from inside the story.
I guess presumably the real story the book was based on, something like that.
Something like that.
Here's all I'll say about this is that I love Dan Stevens as an actor. Love him to death. All the way. Downton Abbey was the first time I was exposed to him. He's great. And then he, of course, segued from Downton Abbey.
Legion and all that,
Yeah, he's into an instant career. I mean, suddenly Hollywood was calling. They said, we want you. And his agent said, payday time
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Let's line you up.
Yeah.
Just line them up and knock them down. And he's been working nonstop, back to back to back to back. TVs and movies and indies and studios and Beauty and the Beast and this and everything else. And it seems like every other week I'm seeing Dan Stevens in a movie, and he's playing a psycho killer from Alabama, and then he's playing Beast, and then he's playing Charles Dickens, and he is everywhere right now. And I get it. He's collecting the money.
Yeah.
He's getting checks. He's in his prime earning years. But Dan, slow down.
You got to be careful, baby.
Be careful, because you are going to be, if you keep this up, you will become Nick Cage.
Yeah.
It's my warning. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave that there.
Be careful. It's a complicated thing. Bonus features: the story behind the man who invented Christmas. Bonus feature.
So Woody Allen's Wonder Wheel got beat up by critics, and Woody continued to get beat up a little bit too with the Me Too moment. Here's all I'm going to say. Everything I have to say about this film, I wrote in my review on cinegods.com, so go check that out. I think this is a fascinating movie for many reasons, but mainly because everything about it is Woody basically projecting a lot of the issues in his life.
Which he's been doing for 50 years now, but nevertheless.
But if you contrast this with Annie Hall, this is almost like a bookend to Annie Hall in terms of
young Juno Temple being
it's a very similar dynamic to Manhattan, actually, I should say. It's the Annie Hall and Manhattan dynamics, both of those movies, and it bookends them. And everything that's going on here, this love triangle, is exactly Woody and Soon-Yi and Mia and everything related to them. And everything connects in a really interesting way.
Including the punishments.
It absolutely does. Yeah. It's a really interesting film set in the 1950s at Coney Island.
Very theatrically staged, like a play.
And beautifully shot, by the way.
Almost kind of like a Eugene O'Neill sort of James Belushi, James Belushi. James Belushi actually quite good in the movie.
Very good, and Eugene O'Neill is a very valid connection to this. There are some interesting play connections. And I'll leave it at that. I talk about all that in the review, and you can go read that review. Vittorio Storaro photographed it. Beautiful. Typically great, as he always has been.
I think it got beat up when everything went. Look, I can see why some people were not nuts about the movie, but the situation, Ronan, and all of that slipped into our assessment of that movie.
Yes,
and I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to do that. You know, I didn't want to. Speaking of Nick Cage, Selma Blair, Mom and Dad, dark comedy. This is actually a lot of fun. This is a combo Blu-ray DVD. Because we poke Nicholas all the time. This one is really about the kids. Mom and Dad, Selma Blair, Nicolas Cage go completely bananas. This is happening like all over the place, and parents are going crazy, and they're trying to kill their children. It's like a 24-hour thing, and basically. This movie is about Nick Cage and Selma Blair trying with all their might to kill their two children. It's just as hard as they possibly can, and the two kids doing everything they can to survive. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And what the heck with that? It's kind of nuts and kind of goofy. Enjoy it. There's nothing whatsoever in terms of special features on this Blu-ray DVD combo pack. Mom and Dad.
So in 2016, Anton Yelchin made a movie called Porto, and it is now out on Blu-ray. And it is, it's sad. Anton Yelchin really just kind of that is one of those really tragic deaths. One of the last films that he made. And a really sweet romance that deserves to be seen. It's not anything extraordinary, but there is a bittersweet aspect to it in watching it with the knowledge that he's no longer with us. This played the South by Southwest last year. I think he'd already passed.
Yeah,
by the time it was the South by Southwest. Yeah. So I guess the movie was done, but not. At least it was shot, but not cut at that time. Anyway, it's kind of one of like the Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy Linklater movies, basically.
Before and after sunrise.
Yeah, it takes place in the Portuguese city of Porto, hence the title, Porto. And she's from France and he's from America, and it basically follows that the Linklater formula almost to a T, but in a very interesting and original way. And what's nice about that is that you also get the documentary on here, James Benning and Richard Linklater, a documentary. by the director of this film, Gabe Klinger. Which was made in 2013. So it's very clear that Klinger is inspired by Linklater, and he's looking to do something similar. And he actually does find his own voice here in a very interesting way. And also included here is Super 8 footage with Chantal Akerman's unused voiceover. So there's a double tragedy here: is the involvement not just of Anton Yelchin, but Chantal Akerman, who took her own life roughly around the same time. And Jim Jarmusch was an executive producer on this. So there's a lot of a great indie cred going into this, and it's a really, really very sweet film. So highly recommended. Porto on Blu-ray from Kino. And then lastly, Birdboy, Forgotten Children.
Love that movie.
Did you like Birdboy?
I did.
Did you really?
You didn't like it?
We talked about this on Film Week, Charles and I, and I think Lael was on too. It's weirdness. I don't get it. It's just all kind of crazy Spanish animated weirdness and anthropomorphic animals. And Birdboy is like some weird ghostly looking bird that thinks he's a boy, or he's a boy that thinks he's a bird. I don't know. I can't make this thing out. It made no sense to me whatsoever. But it won a Goya Award in Spain for Best Animated Feature. I don't know how many things it was up against. I don't know how many animated features they make in Spain. But anyway.
Interested in
it's got an interview with the filmmakers, which doesn't illuminate the movie any for me. Also has a short film. So anyway, DVD and Blu-ray combo from Shout Factory. Birdboy, The Forgotten Children. Just a weird animated movie. That's all I can say.
A Fanatic hard Bob Geldof on WB. This is a really great. It's a doc.
Yeah.
And of course, Sir Geldof, of course, is a noted figure for a number of reasons, but he's also a committed sort of poet and follower of his national mythology of Yeats. Who as a figure himself, of course, the thing about Yeats is Yeats probably had more to do with establishing the sort of national identity for independence in that nation than almost any other figure. Certainly, any of the figures from the more violent years that we associate with that period, the Michael Collinses and all these kind of things. And he did it with poetry and plays and no guns. Which is the thing that Geldof knows. This is a really, really powerful film, a documentary that includes readings of Yeats poems and all kinds of stuff from Elvis Costello and Liam Neeson and on and on and on. One of the things that he does not mention though in here, because he constantly mentions Yeats as a poet, of course, which he was, but people forget that he wrote some almost 50 or if not more plays. He was a playwright too. But people forget that. They just think about the poetry. No, he's a wonderful playwright. In any case, it's a beautiful movie with all kinds of extras, including some stuff from some tracks from Bono and Elvis Costello, and just powerful stuff. Particularly if you happen to be a fan of Yeats. OneRepublic live in South Africa. OneRepublic live in South Africa. Anyway, this is just a really neat concert film of this neat band, It's been around for a little while now, actually, OneRepublic. And a very big show that they did in South Africa. Bonus features include a short documentary behind the scenes, and they go on a little tour of Sydney. And when they go down to Australia, so neat stuff. Johannesburg, South Africa, and a few other places. Vanilla Fudge live at Sweden Rock. Vanilla Fudge has been around doing psychedelic this, that, and the other thing for 50 years. For 50 years, these cats have been rocking. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. This is great. They do all kinds of covers and it's just a really, really, really neat DVD CD combination. Is what we have here. Vanilla Fudge live at Sweden Rock 2016 50th anniversary edition.
And then we've got.
I'm gonna borrow Porto. I'm gonna borrow Porto. We already did some. I'm borrowing Porto because I hadn't seen it.
And then we've got a whole bunch of really cool stuff from Naxos on the classical music end of things. Symphonic Visions, music for silent films by Ed Hughes. This is really good. I'm not familiar with Ed Hughes as a composer, not the least bit, but I really enjoyed this. Now, these silent films, half of them are known silent films. And the other half is Brighton's Symphony of a City, which is a 47-minute new film by Lizzie Thin, or Tyne, Thyne. I have no idea how you pronounce it. Don't even know her. But then in addition to that, you have the silent films Alice in Wonderland, Journey to the Moon, The Nose, Night Music, and Sky Giant. This is a really interesting, a little bit avant-garde, but quite a nice way for a composer to sort of make themselves known.
Yeah.
And then we also have William Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra by the Royal Shakespeare Company from Opus Arte. This is really quite interesting. Josette Simon plays Cleopatra. She's a little bit old for Cleopatra, to be honest. But she's amazing. It doesn't matter. You don't need that. Shakespeare is sort of non-discriminating that way. You can play with it and you can fold it any way you want. She's really, really quite amazing, and everybody else here is amazing. A lot of actors here that I would love to see really kind of move to the screen. Really incredible. Anthony Byrne, Ben Allen, Lucy Phelps, who plays Octavia, is just tremendous. Really, really interesting. Antony and Cleopatra, very, very legendary play. Never really been done properly for the screen. So it'd be nice to see something transition there. Giuseppe Verdi.
Oh, Verdi. Oh,
yeah, we have Verdi as well. Giuseppe Verdi's La Forza.
Oh, the Force of Destiny.
Del Destino. Staged by David Pountey and with the Vienna Staatsoper Orchestra, choir and orchestra, conducted by Zubin Mehta. Beautifully done, really, really impeccable. Just a great staging. Absolutely nothing to not recommend it. These are all on Blu-ray, by the way. Every single one of these is on Blu-ray. And then we have Tchaikovsky's Peak Dame, which is also beautifully staged. Really, really impressive work from the Dutch National Opera. Even small European countries just have amazing opera and ballet traditions, and they just put so much in. It's so hard to find like that rare Dutch movie, and yet they just do these amazing opera productions. So if they could put as much into their movies as they put into their stage productions, it'd be just amazing. So this is wonderful. This is brand new, Peak Dame, music by Tchaikovsky from the Dutch National Opera.
Matthias Schoenhardt's notwithstanding. He's Dutch, right? Matthias Schoenhardt.
He's
Belgian? Okay.
He's Belgian, yeah. And then a whole bunch of stuff from Mozart. So I'm going to go right down this little Mozart stack. We got Mozart and then
The Lover's Garden.
So The Lover's Garden from Mozart. This and The Marriage of Figaro, Le Nozze de Figaro, both staged by the Teatro alla Scala in Italy, which we've mentioned a lot. Beautiful, beautiful staging in both cases. Really, really just flawless and effortless. A lot of great performances here that just will blow your mind if you like Mozart operas. The last two, this one is also, well, hold on, so we have another Marriage of Figaro here. Yeah, this is from the Théâtre des Champs-Elysees in Paris. This is a little bit more traditional, kind of a little bit more low-key, very sparse, not quite as flamboyant as the Italian one, but it's worth checking out as well. Directed by Pierre Barret, who does a lot of stage in France. And then lastly, De Konigs Zauberflote. Mozart, this is a little kind of very modern staging of Mozart, but what's nice about this is it's Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
It's an import from Kala Media, and it was shot with an Arri Alexa, so it's going to look dazzling on your Blu-ray player. I'm a little bit amazed they didn't do a 4K version of this, because with Dolby Atmos and the resolution you get on the Arri Alexa, it would have just been a mind-boggling thing to look at and listen to. So anyway, that's there. And let me get the last ones here. We've got Sleeping Beauty, from the stage by the Royal Ballet and the Royal Opera House in the UK. Beautifully done. Can't really go wrong there. And then also from the Royal Ballet, Pas de Deux, an exceptional collection of ballet duets. This is just kind of a potpourri of stuff from a lot of great ballets. For people who don't particularly like ballet and don't want to have to sit through one entire ballet, You can watch all 16 of these cool little clips, and
With some great dancers.
Don Quixote, and Alice in Wonderland, and Romeo and Juliet, and a lot of great stuff on here. So it's just really, really great ballet dancing.
The big scenes.
The big scenes. Yeah. Best hits.
Yeah.
Greatest hits. And then lastly, live from the 2016 BBC Proms at the Royal Albert Hall, which I have jogged around many times, never been inside. This is the Munich Philharmonic, just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful performance of a whole bunch of great classical pieces. It includes Ravel's Bolero. It includes Piano Concerto 3 from Rachmaninoff. Richard Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier. There's the Hungarian March by Berlioz. It's just really, really great, and beautifully performed by the Munich Philharmonic and Valery Gergiev, and with some great soloists as well. This is just, it's a big thing in the UK. One of these days I'll go to the Royal Albert Hall. But on occasions, when I've jogged around it, it's quite exciting.
Good enough.
Go through Hyde Park, and then you skip over around the Royal Albert Hall, and you go, man, who knew too much was shot inside there? That's cool, and I'm never going inside. So anyway,
3 miles. Was it 3 miles?
Yeah, it's about 3.
About 3.
About 3 miles. The whole the whole circle. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good times. And then, of course, when you're in Hyde Park, you go to the Peter Pan statue, and you feel very British and very classical, and and it's cold. It's cold running around that area. Anyway, well, that's it. That is our show this week.
We talked about the Oscars for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine. Gods@digigods.com. Go ahead and email us. Visit the cinegods.com site. We're going to be making some changes shortly to try to spruce that thing up a little bit. So email us any of your suggestions. Visit the Cinegods page on Facebook, please, and like it, and spread the word around. We're trying to get all these things ramped up, and do so through the rest of the year. We will see.
Did we mention that the Film Week program now airs?
Oh, that's right.
Did we mention this?
We did not.
On the show, so it's Film Week, the program that we're on, NPR affiliate,
which you can download as a podcast.
You can download
as well.
Podcast. That's what happens. It airs on Saturdays now.
Yeah.
And we were told that the ratings literally doubled.
Between Friday
and Saturday. A whole new audience.
Yeah.
Listen to that show. That's fantastic.
That's great. That is great. So yeah, if you're in LA, then you're around 89.3 FM on a Saturday. Go ahead and listen to Film Week. What time is it on Saturday?
On Saturdays it's at noon. On Fridays it's at 11.
Yeah. Very good. All right. With that, we will see you guys next week. As is Martin Sheen as one of these two punks who terrorize people on a New York subway. Really gritty, kind of cinema verite look to this thing.
Ruby Dee, Brock Peters,
It's terrific.
Tony Mastante, that
Yeah.
a real John Cassavetes sort of feel to it. Not John Cassavetes, but that mood.
And Pierce does a commentary here with Nick Redmond from Twilight Time. So it's just absolutely terrific film. And I think that's it then. So we are done this week. We will be back next week to talk about the Oscars.